Welcome to my channel. I'm that Scottish nerd that brings you Pokemon trading card game content as well as gaming videos, so if either of that interests you, be sure to subscribe down below as I do upload multiple times a week. In today's video we're going to be taking a look at the deck that I'm going to be playing in the Players Cup 3, and that is Coalossal VMAX. It is certainly an underrated deck in the current state of the meta, so let's go in and have a look at the deck profile and we'll get into a couple of matches afterwards. So of course here we have the main attacker of the deck, the Coalossal VMAX. This is a really big Pokemon, as you'll see, as it has 330 hit points, but we also have ways of increasing this as well as reducing damage. The main attacks that we're going to be looking at are Eruption Shot here. For a single fighting energy we are able to do 40 damage, but we also discard the top card of our deck, and if it's a fighting energy we're doing a total of 130 damage, and we also get to attach that energy onto this Coalossal VMAX. So this is great inbuilt energy acceleration as well as doing some consistent 130 damage, which is going to be enough to knock out a whole bunch of Pokemon that are weak to fighting, such as your PikaRoms, your Raichus tag teams, as well as the Eternatus V if you're able to hit into it before it goes into the VMAX, as well as just being a really good number for knocking out some of those little Pokemon like Dedenne GX and Crobat V, getting some easy 2 prizes on those Pokemon. And we also have that second attack here, G-Max Boulder, for 240 damage for 4 energy. This is going to allow us to get some big damage in against some of those higher HP VMAXs and tag teams. As I mentioned, we have some other ways to increase this HP, so we do have 4 retreat cost here, and we're going to be able to combo that with the buff padding, which makes it so that our Pokemon with a 4 retreat cost have an increased HP by 50. So this is going to give our Coalossal VMAX a total of 380 hit points, as well as our stone energy here, stone fighting energy, reducing damage by 20. So even though we have 380 hit points, we effectively have more than that, because every turn that my opponent attacks into a VMAX with the stone energy, it's going to be reducing any damage which is dealt to it. So it's really going to turn those 2-hit knockouts into a 3-hit knockout and make it very difficult for our opponents to knock out Coalossal VMAX. To combo with this even further, we have Mallow and Lana here. This is a tag team supporter card, which allows us to discard 2 cards from our hand, and if we do, we are able to switch out our active Pokemon and heal 120 damage from it. So once again, just making it even more difficult for our opponent to get those knockouts. And going back to the Pokemon here, we do have a pretty standard lineup for the Coalossal VMAX deck, but if you're not familiar with it, in order to guarantee that Eruption Shot, we do have the Oranguru here with Primate Wisdom, allowing us to switch the top card of our deck with one that's in our hand, meaning we can guarantee that fighting energy on top of the deck. The Eruption Shot also combos with this stone energy, we'll mention, as it allows us to count it as a fighting energy when it's on top of the deck, and it doesn't actually have to be a basic energy to combo with the Eruption Shot here, it just has to be any fighting energy. We also have the Coalossal V, of course, to evolve into the VMAX, but unfortunately it doesn't have any useful attacks since they both cost 3 or 4 energy respectively, and that's just too much energy to commit, as we're going to be looking to use that 1 energy on the Eruption Shot on the second or third turn of the game. We also have a supporting attacker here in the Surfetched V. It has an ability which allows you to put all of your energy onto it when it becomes your active Pokemon. Of course you don't have to put all of your energy onto it, but certainly the required amount for its attack. And that attack, Meteor Smash, allows you to do 200 damage. This is great for getting a late game knockout if you're running low on attackers or energy, or if you want to mix it up and give your opponent 3 prize cards on the VMAX, then 2 prizes on the Surfetched, and then go into another VMAX. Then the rest of our Pokemon are just supporting Pokemon like the Crobat V and Dedenne GX, allowing us to draw cards, as well as the amazing rare Jirachi here. We have 1 copy of this, as it allows us to draw a card from the top of our deck with the Dreamy Revelation ability, and since we have a lot of switching cards or comboing it with Mallow and Lana, is a great way to get some additional draw, since we also have free retreat through the air balloons here. And of course our last Pokemon is the Mimikyu. This is going to stop us from getting hit by Mewtwo GXs. That's really the main Pokemon that we're trying to tech for here. This deck isn't particularly techy, but this card is the one card that you're going to want to include for those Mewtwo matchups. Whenever you damage the Mewtwo with your Eruption Shot, even if you're just doing the 40 damage, then this Mimikyu is going to stop the Mewtwo from being able to attack you. It's great for those matchups and slowing down the Mewtwo player, especially when it's against PikaRom. They'll try and use the Mewtwo to cover the weaknesses, but if you can stop that from being able to attack, you can just focus on hitting into those PikaRoms and getting that weakness for some easy 3 prize knockouts. Going into the rest of the trainer cards here, we have a copy of Greatcatcher, just to fill up any GX Pokemon that my opponent has on the bench, like Dedenne as we mentioned. We have a copy of Palpad here, which I don't see too often, but I like it in the deck as it allows us to reuse our Boss Orders or our Mallow and Lana, since we have 2 copies of each of those supporters. Just this one copy of Palpad allows us to reuse those and give us a little bit more versatility. We also have 4 copies of Quick Ball and 3 Pokemon Communication for those searching out of the Pokemon. And of course we have 4 copies of the Rotom Phone. This has become a staple in the Coalossal VMAX deck, as it allows us to look at the top 5 cards of our deck and put one of those cards on the top of our deck. Great for comboing with the Eruption Shot, getting the energy that we need, or if you're in a bit of a pickle and you need to search for a supporter card or anything else that you really need at that specific turn, you can get it with this Rotom Phone card. We also have 4 copies of Switch. Since a lot of our Pokemon have a high retreat cost, you're going to want to use Switch to get it out of the active if your opponent tries to stall with Boss's Orders. And then of course we have the 4 copies of Marnie and Professor's Research, along with the 2 copies of Boss's Orders as I mentioned. Just overall trying to get some good consistency with the deck, as it can brick at times, and of course if you're against certain matchups like ADP, you don't want to be putting down things like Dedenne and Crobat, but for the most part, very consistent and fun deck. This is going to be my play for the Players Cup 3, as you're hitting the most popular and most favourable matchups in PikaRom and Eternatus, and you're also just great across the board against any other matchups. Let's get into a game here and I'll show off how the deck works, and you can let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Starting off this matchup, let's see what my opponent is playing. We do start with the Jirachi Amazing Rare, which is a reasonable start, but our hand isn't looking too hot at the moment, and we are up against the Mad Party deck. So I'm going to start off with the Dreamy Revelation here to draw a card. We get into the VMAX or the Energy. We already have some energy in hand, so I might as well take the VMAX here. And we can also make use of our Rotom Phone to try and get into a better supporter, but it looks like we're not getting that. So I'm going to grab the Pokemon Communication for the following turn. And there's not much point in attaching energy here, even to retreat, since we have the double switch in hand. And we'll pass it over to our opponent and hope that they don't get the knockout here. I do recommend going first with this deck in pretty much every matchup, since you want to get that energy down on the Coalossal on your first turn. That's going to get you towards your second attack here, if we can see what it's called, the VMAX Boulder. You want to get energy onto your Coalossal as quickly as possible so that you can build towards that VMAX Boulder. Certainly getting energy down on the first turn, that means on the second turn you can go for the Eruption Shot for the 1 energy, and then that's going to accelerate your energy, and on the following turn you'll be able to use the VMAX Boulder. But it looks like here my opponent is getting set up and they have the Marnie, which is great for us, being able to reset our hand, and they're looking to get the knockout, but they're only doing 20 damage, so that is one of the unfortunate parts of playing Mad Party. The early turns are very rough for you, and we have drawn into a pretty bad hand once again, unfortunately, but we have the Pokemon Communication here. We could get a Crobat or a Dedenne, but with the energy that we have in our hand, I think it'll be better to get something like a Coalossal. Though also drawing cards here is going to be pretty crucial to getting our game going. So I think grabbing a Crobat here so that we can draw some cards. We'll put that down and we'll draw 3 cards here. We get into the VMAX, which isn't too great. We also get a Professor's Research, so we certainly could make use of those. We also have the Switch and the Dreaming of Revelation at our disposal. So I think we'll go for the Research first here. It's a bit unfortunate losing 2 of our energy, as we don't have any way of recovering energy, but we do have to get something going here, and we aren't able to find a basic Pokemon. We have a Coalossal from the Rotom phone, which we can get. Used Dreaming of Revelation here to get that off the top of our deck, and we'll be able to put that into play and attach an energy to it. I think just passing it over to my opponent here is going to be the best bet. We could put something like the Crobat into the active. It would potentially give them 2 prize cards, but it would also make it harder for them to knock out. So I'm going to do exactly that, switch into the Crobat, and we can always use the Air Balloon on the following turn, and that will allow us to retreat into our Coalossal VMAX. Now, only doing 40 damage here is going to be perfectly fine, since the Bunnelby is weak to fighting, and that will make it so that we're doing double the amount of damage and getting the knockout nice and easily on this Bunnelby. They also have the Dedenne GX in the back there, so we could go and try and get a knockout on that with our boss's orders at some point in the future. Hopefully we can draw into an Oranguru or perhaps just an energy, and hopefully looking for some stone energy as well. That would be great for reducing the damage that we're taking here. Now my opponent is playing the Crushing Hammers in their deck, so it's a very unusual Mad Party list, I would have to say. But we just see another attack, and going into our Crobat is going to be fine. Since we have the VMAX here as well as the Air Balloon, we're going to attach this energy. We will be losing the boss's orders here, but I would like to see a bunch more cards from this Professor's Research. We do get into the Mallow and Lana, as well as the Palpad, so we can always recycle some of our supporters here, like the boss's orders. And we have a bunch of Quick Balls. We can grab something off of the Quick Ball here, discarding one of those, and get ourselves an Oranguru. And this is going to allow us to use Primate Wisdom and put one of these energy on top of the deck. Going to opt for the Stone energy, since that will allow us to reduce some of this damage on the following turn. And getting the knockout here, as I said, nice and easily, and taking our first prize of the game. We do have this Mallow and Lana in hand, which is great for the following turn if my opponent is able to discard a bunch of Mad Party Pokemon. They have 4 in the discard pile at the moment, so that's going to be doing a total of 80. And they promote the Oricorio, which is going to allow them to draw 3 cards, since they took a knockout, or we took a knockout, and they lost one of their Pokemon, so that allows them to use Oricorio's ability to draw 3. They go for the Roxy here, discarding 2 Mad Party Pokemon, so that puts them up to a total of 10. They're going to Quick Ball here to search out a Dedenne and use T-Break in order to discard that Dedenne. So I think that's what, 11 they're on now. We'll see what else my opponent can do. They're able to draw with this Oricorio, so they might have a potential way to discard a couple more Mad Party Pokemon. And they're going to be looking to try and get another attack off here. They've got the Quick Ball, discarding the Mr. Rhyme and getting another Bunnelby. And they also get the energy, which is good for them. And it heads on the Crushing Hammer to get rid of our Stone energy. It's pretty unfortunate. And they're going to be able to hit into us for 160 damage. Now, as I say, we do have the Mallow and Lana, which I'm going to use here to get rid of the damage that my opponent just dealt to us. And we're just going to want to decide what we want to discard. I think getting rid of this Quick Ball is going to be fine here, as well as this Coalossal V, as we have plenty of them in the deck. suppose getting rid of the Pokemon communication is actually better, since we can always make use of the Quick Ball to get another Pokemon instead. So we use that to go into the Crobat since it has the air balloon, and attaching an energy to our Coalossal VMAX is a good option, but I think putting it to the top of the deck is also just as valid here. But we'll go with the Primate Wisdom. We'll put the Quick Ball to the top, see what we get switched over. We have a Marnie, which is nothing too crazy, and we'll just attach to our active, and we don't mind discarding the Quick Ball here, so we just don't really need to make use of it at the moment. Getting our next knockout, getting the buff padding is a pretty good pickup from the prize cards here, as that's going to allow us to certainly buff our HP. And we get an Evolution Incense out of our opponent, getting that second Poltergeist into play. So they have 2 T-Breaks at their disposal if they want to draw a bunch of cards through that. But it looks like we're getting hit with a Marnie. So that Pal Pad and buff padding is going to go to the bottom of the deck, which is rather unfortunate. We do get into a Stone Energy though, as well as the Rotom Phone, so those are both great pickups. Then we'll be looking for a Boss's Orders at some point soon so that we can take a knockout on either this Oricorio or Dedenne, and try and catch up in the prize race through that, and just denying as many prize cards as possible through Mallow and Lana and buffing our HP as much as possible. So our opponent hits into us for a total of 180 damage, which puts us up to 220. So we're going to want to start trying to get some other VMAXs down and start using those to attack with instead. We do have the Stone Energy, but we don't really want to attach that. As I say, we want to get that onto a fresh VMAX if we can. We use our Rotom Phone here, see what we can get into. We have the buff padding, which could be an option, but that's not going to put us out of range, unfortunately, as we have 110 remaining right now. That'll put us to 160, and since my opponent is hitting for 180, that's not going to be super relevant at the moment. We could still take it just to have, but I think a supporter card is going to be more beneficial at the moment. So we'll put the Professor's Research to the top here and switch over this VMAX for that Professor's Research. I don't think the Surfetch is going to be all that great this matchup, so we'll just use the Professor's Research here to draw a bunch of cards. We do get that Boss's Orders as well as the Pal Pad pickup, so we could shuffle in a Mallow and Lana at the moment if we want to, but I think leaving it as it is just fine, and we could use the Rotom Phone, but we don't really need a whole lot, so I'm just going to take the knockout here. Hopefully we don't discard anything too crazy, but we do happen to hit into an energy. I'd rather have kept that around for our next VMAX, which is a bit unfortunate, but our opponent is going to be looking to get a knockout here if they have the energy available to them. Certainly they do have plenty of ways to draw cards, so they should be able to find an energy. They get another heads on that Crushing Hammer, discarding our Stone Energy once again on our benched Coalossal V. And looks like they're getting down a Marshadow. It's this Marshadow which discards a Stadium card in play, but luckily for us we don't play any Stadium cards, as there's not really any useful Stadiums that Coalossal VMAX wants to take use of. And certainly there's a lot of decks in the format right now which are making use of the Chaotic Spell, which counters any Stadiums anyway, so there's not really much use in putting a Stadium card into play, especially if you're just using 1 or 2 copies. It's much better for us to use cards that are going to up our consistency or help us to increase our HP. So we do have our VMAX here we can put into play, and we'll be wanting to get an energy here for the knockout. We do also have a Boss's Orders that I can make use of, as I said, but I think taking a knockout here and then using the Boss's Orders on the following turn is certainly going to be a more beneficial play for us. So we use this Rotom Phone to try and get an energy. Fortunately we do miss the energy, so I'll put the buff padding to the top of the deck instead, and we can use Oranguru to Primate Wisdom those. And we'll swap over the Boss's Orders here. Put that to the top of the deck, so that we can put the buff padding down, as well as make use of Marnie. That's going to reduce our opponent's hand size, also reduces our hand size but allows us to see a few more cards, as well as getting an energy into the hand, which is great, so we can use a Primate Wisdom on our second Oranguru, and that's going to allow us to get that extra damage for the knockout that we need here. We also get into a Stone Energy, happened to be on the top of the deck, and I would have loved to have put that onto the VMAX, but that's fine. We get the knockout here, and our opponent is going to have to find a miracle to try and knock out our VMAX, because there's no way that they're able to do enough damage to get the knockout here. Even with every single Mad Party Pokemon in the discard pile, they're only able to do a total of 300 damage. So even if they get rid of our buff padding, there's no way that they're getting a knockout here. And we have Boss's Orders in hand, so that on this following turn we can take a knockout on the Dedenne GX on the bench there, comboing with our Stone Energy and Primate Wisdom to put that on the top. We can Eruption Shot for the knockout on the Dedenne. It looks like my opponent is still trying to draw through their deck and get some more discards here for Mad Party to do some more damage, but you gotta wonder what else they can really do at this point, and they're just resolving to hit us for 240 damage with the Mad Party. So as I said, we have the knockout here. We can put the Stone Energy on the top of our deck. We get an Air Balloon, which isn't too useful, but we have the Boss's Orders, and that's going to be game for the Coalossal VMAX, easily taking out the Mad Party deck. So as you can see, even against a one prize deck, they're forced to put down 2 prizers, and we can take easy knockouts on those for the game. Alrighty, let's start off our second match here. Looks like my opponent has opted for us to go first, which is perfectly fine with me. Allows us to get an energy attachment down, as well as play some of our other cards here. Now, my opponent did have a couple of mulligans, and it does look like we're against a Frostmoth deck, and they have the Dreadnought V, and most likely the VMAX as well. It's a very similar deck to our own, where they're looking to buff their HP as much as possible and reduce damage, and just slow us down while they attach energy and start hitting for big damage. Now, we don't have too much good stuff going on in our hand right here, but hopefully these Rotom Foam will get us into something. But of course, thankfully, my opponent does go for the Marnie, so I'm perfectly fine with that, and we can get a fresh hand here. We get into a Boss's Orders and a Coalossal, nothing too good. We do have the double Primate Wisdom, so hopefully that gets us into a supporter card. And my opponent doesn't have the Snom, which is great. That means that they don't have the Frostmoth for the following turn. Also, they got heads, or not heads, the opposite of the heads. They got tails on a Crushing Hammer in last turn, which is good, so we get to keep our Stone Energy around. Unfortunately, we don't get into anything good here, and we're kind of in a bit of a sticky situation. So let's see, we have a Blastoise and Piplup, which we could use Boss's Orders to pull up, and it would be difficult for them to retreat. We would be doing more damage as well, or alternatively we could bring up the Crobat, but I suppose the Crobat has a 1 retreat cost. So I think we're going to use Boss's Orders here to bring up the Blastoise and Piplup, attach an energy to the active, and we'll pass it over to our opponent. Hopefully on this following turn we can get into a useful supporter we can make use of, otherwise we can just start attacking into this Blastoise and Piplup. Looks like my opponent is using Blue's Challenge, so they are able to draw cards at the end of their turn here. We get into our Boss's Orders again, of course, and I think we'll just attach this buff padding to the active as well as the energy. We'll go for the Primate Wisdom on our Coalossal V here, see what we can get into. We have a Professor's Research, so also use our second Primate Wisdom potentially. I would like to have kept that around. Now think about that, I can regret not putting Boss's Orders on top, but we'll use the Professor's Research anyway. We don't get into the VMAX unfortunately, but we get our Coalossal V back, as well as a Quick Ball here, which we could make use of to grab something, and then Crobat, but I think I'm going to be content here with just attacking. I suppose we could Primate Wisdom this Marnie onto the top of the deck, see what we get into. We get a Pokemon Communication, So that could get us into a VMAX for sure, or alternatively we could just hit into this and then get the VMAX the following turn, which is a perfectly reasonable plan if I do say so. So we're going to hit into this for 90, and then on our following turn here we can grab the VMAX and attach an energy and then start hitting for 240 damage with that VMAX boulder attack. Now my opponent does have the Fion unfortunately, but we do have a switch in hand, so we are prepared for that at the very least. They're opting to go for that Fion, so we'll push up our other Coalossal V since it has the most HP. We can always heal it off with a Mellow Lana later if we get the opportunity. And my opponent will still be looking for a switching card to try and get into their Dreadnought V. Looks like they're just mulling over their options. They go for the Professor's Research here. Let's see what they discard. I've seen a lot of energy. We have 3 energy hitting the discard pile, as well as a Crobat in there, and a energy retrieval. My opponent does get heads on the Crushing Hammer unfortunately, so we won't be able to use the VMAX Boulder if we get into the VMAX here, but we can at least hit for 130 with the Eruption Shot. So that's definitely what we're going to be going for here. We'll use our Pokemon Communication, put the Crobat back into the deck and grab ourselves the VMAX. Now we could switch into this one with the buff padding, or of course we could have went into the active, but I think this one with the buff padding, and since it already has energy, it's going to be more beneficial for us to go this way. And we can Primate Wisdom, put an energy on top of the deck. We want to save that, keep that around. Get into a Professor's Research, which I much prefer over the Marnie. I don't really care for using the Quick Ball because I want to guarantee the energy here. And we get the Primate Wisdom, once again putting the Stone energy on top of the deck. And we can go for our Eruption Shot for 130 damage. And we get to accelerate that Stone energy onto our VMAX. So my opponent's tag team Pokemon here is sitting on 50 HP remaining, so it'll be a nice easy knockout for us if we want to continue to hit into this if they don't have a switch card, or of course if they retreat it or switch to the bench, then we can always use a boss's orders at some point. My opponent does get the Frostmoth set up, so they're able to accelerate water energy to their water Pokemon, putting onto the Dreadnought V in the back there. Well, it is the VMAX now. You see it has 320 hit points, along with that Solid Shell ability being able to reduce damage by 30, so it effectively has 350 hit points. And then that G-Max Headbutt attack being able to do 160 and additional damage if they're able to flip heads. My opponent's going for the Quick Ball, grabbing Fion once again. Looks like they're trying to stall us out, but we're ready again, and we have the switch as well as the air balloon. It looks like they're opting instead for a boss's orders, which is fine by me. We can use a air balloon here, or even a switch. I think the switch is going to be better to keep the air balloon on something else. Would have been nice if we had a Quick Ball here, but we'll settle for the Pokemon Communication. Put the Mimikyu into the deck since that's not going to be particularly useful at the moment, and we'll take the Jirachi out here. We could just get the VMAX, but I think since we have the energy on this VMAX already, it's going to be more useful to go into this Jirachi. We'll switch into this. I don't think we want to put the Crobat down, that's just going to be a liability for us. We already have 4 energy on our VMAX, so I'll attach an energy to our Coalossal V. We'll use Dreamy Revelation here. We get to draw a card, we get a Professor's Research, and we could also make use of Palpad here before we use Professor's Research, and that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to get those boss's orders back into the deck where they belong and use Professor's Research here. Get to draw fresh 7 cards. We don't get into anything too useful, but I think we're going to put a supporter card onto the top of our deck with Primate Wisdom, just to guarantee ourselves a supporter card should we need it. And we also get the VMAX, so I'm going to evolve into that just in case my opponent wants to try and get a knockout on our Pokemon V there. And of course we get the VMAX Boulder doing 240 damage and getting the 3 prize knockout on my opponent's tag team Pokemon. Going behind on prize cards, my opponent's going to be having to do a lot to try and catch up here. They only have a 2-card hand, and while they do have the Dreadnought VMAX to start trying to do some damage, I think our damage output is going to be better than our opponent's, as well as the fact that we also have a lot more HP, and being able to reduce damage is going to be in our benefit for sure. And they did get a head on the Crushing Hammer, unfortunately, and they're going to use the Fion to force something else up from us. I think we're going to feed them a Oranguru here. We don't mind too much if we lose one, since I would much rather they take a 1 prize knockout on our Oranguru rather than something like our VMAX going down. And of course we can promote our Jirachi here, as we don't want to give them that since we have the air balloon on it already. Now we are looking to try and get a knockout on our opponent's VMAX. We could also go for an alternative route, like going for boss's orders on a Crobat and then one of their bench Pokemon. So we'll start off here with the Dreamy Revelation, grab ourselves the air balloon, and also losing that energy on our VMAX means that we don't have one at the moment. So I'm going to have to use this Rotom Phone, see if we can call for an energy. We do get an energy, which is great. And we're going to use the Primate Wisdom here. I think we're going to want to put a supporter card on the top of the deck once again. Put the Marnie, just in case my opponent gets a Marnie of their own, then we have that option available to us. And we can retreat our Jirachi here and use our VMAX Boulder for 240 damage, but of course they have the ability to reduce damage, so we're doing 210, but that's going to be more than enough damage to get a 2-hit knockout on our opponent's VMAX. And if they don't have a way to stop our own VMAX, we're going to be able to win on this following turn. Even if they have some sort of a switch card, then we have all of the answers. Just like here, my opponent goes for the boss's orders on our VMAX. They get the heads, able to do some additional damage, doing 240 damage, but we do have the switch, so we're able to go into our Coalossal VMAX and get the VMAX Boulder for the knockout and take our remaining 3 prize cards. So very easy matchup as well. Bit of an unusual deck that you will not often see, but it's good to know that this is able to beat out any kind of unusual deck that you might come across as well. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you're going to be playing for the Players Cup 3, and give this video a like if you enjoyed it, as it really helps me out. I'll see you in the next video.